welcome to another Yorkshire tale. This tale is the Boggart. Now, Boggarts did not just pop up in Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling didn't just make them up. They are a very well-established type of mythical creature. And this particular one is very mischievous, shall we say. This is a very, very short story, and it has ties to Yorkshire, but stories of Boggarts are just everywhere. There are thousands, if not more than thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of stories concerning Boggarts just in England. But this particular one takes place in God's own county, Yorkshire. Now, it came to pass one day that a Boggart took up residence in the house of a quiet, inoffensive farmer named George Gilbertson. Now, once the Boggart was in the house, it decided that it was the rightful owner of this property, and the farmer and his family were intruders. And it decided to cause a great deal of annoyance to them just because it wanted to. It didn't want them to leave because then it would be bored. It just wanted pets to torment. Not that the family actually saw the Boggart, as human eyes cannot see these types of creatures, although they are frequently seen by horses and cattle and animals which have a greater sense than we do. Now, incidentally, a little tidbit of information: a Yorkshire term for a shying horse is one that has taken the boggle. Now, this particular Boggart in this particular house decided to take an intense dislike, particularly to the farmer's children. I get it. And it seemed to revel in constantly tormenting them in various different ways. Sometimes their bread and butter would be snatched away, their bowls of food would be upturned before they could even have a spoonful. The curtains on their beds would be shaken vigorously and violently at all times of the night so that they couldn't sleep. And at times a heavy weight would settle on their chest and stay there to try to suffocate them. And it was only from their cries to their parents that their parents would come in and the Boggart would leave them alone. Every night. No one in this house was getting any ounce of sleep. Now, in this old farmhouse was a cupboard under the stairs. And from the stairs to this cupboard, on that particular stair, was a very large knot in the wood. And this had been poked out and you could see into the cupboard underneath. And one day the youngest boy, who was quite mischievous on his own, he was playing with a shoehorn and he decided to stick this shoehorn into the hole made by the knot of wood that was no longer there. And straight away, when he had stuck it in this hole, it had shot right back out at him and clunked him one on the head. Now at first, the young boy was quite terrified that this thing had been chucked back at him and, hit him on the head. But very, very soon, it became all the children's amusement to stick the shoehorn in the hole and have the Boggart try and hit them with it, and they would dodge it. Now, this activity seemed to goad the Boggart into ever more disruptive behaviour. They were pissing it off, no end. And all through the night, heavy steps could be heard clattering up and down the stairs like someone was wearing clogs. Plates, dishes, everything in the kitchen would be smashed on the floor, although in the morning nothing would be smashed at all. Nobody was sleeping. Everything was disruptive. They couldn't have anybody over. They could hardly live. The kids were grouchy. The farmer was grouchy. The animals were fine. And the Boggart turned out to be such a disruptive torment to this poor family that they decided enough was enough and they would up and move. And, if the Boggart wanted the house that badly, he could have it. This was all put in motion, and the farmer and his family loaded themselves into a cart, the last of the cart to leave the house, as the other furniture had already gone to the place that they had bought a new house, and he was stopped by his neighbour, who asked he finally giving up the old family place because this farmhouse had been in George's family for generations. And George replied to him that they were forced to leave the house because this Boggart was tormenting them so much that they were going insane. And it had such malice towards the children that his wife could not rest for thinking that the Boggart was going to kill them once she closed her eyes. And they were so scared of what it could do or would do to the children that they just couldn't stay. Now, the farmer, after had scarce closed his mouth after telling his neighbour all of this, then a voice came from one of the churns in the cart. It just piped up and said, "Oh yes, we're all leaving together." At this, the farmer cursed worse than any sailor. A sailor would have blushed, because the boggart was going with them. He wasn't staying in the house, he was with them in the cart, and he was going to go with them to the new house and torment them there. And the farmer cried that if he had known that the boggart was going to follow them, and it just wasn't attached to the house, then he wouldn't have spent his money buying another house, and he wouldn't have moved all of his stuff out, and they just wouldn't have bothered in the first place. And he turned to his wife and said it was all in vain, they've got to go back. They might as well just go back to the farmhouse they had just left, the one that they were comfy in, the one that was convenient, and be tormented there rather than be tormented in a new place. Now, the family did turn back, but they came to an understanding with the boggart, as this state of play couldn't go on. Though it continued its trick of firing the shoehorn from the stairs whenever the children tried to bait it. Now, visitors, however, had no such understanding with this creature as the family did, and the shoehorn and other various items was quite frequently pitched at their faces if the boggart thought that they had overstayed their welcome and that they should leave. And this went on for some time, and as far as I know, the boggart is still in that farmhouse in the current generations. So this was just a very, very quick little fun tale from the green fields of Yorkshire directly to you. So let me know what you thought of this tale in the comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe, and as always, keep reading. And if I was a boggart, I'd probably torture the children too.